In 1954, a factory worker's wife in Dayton, Ohio, fed her family of 7 on $9 a week. She made the same 5009 casseroles in rotation and never once heard a complaint. Her secret is number 6 on this list. Number 19 cost less than 40 cents to make and could sit in the oven for an hour without anyone watching it. Number 3 was served at every church potluck from Alabama to Wisconsin. And the woman who brought it never shared the recipe while she was alive. These 25 casseroles music were built for one purpose, stretching almost nothing into a meal that looked like plenty. Then convenience food buried them. Hit the subscribe button. Let us count down the 25 forgotten. Poor man casseroles. Our grandma swore by number 25. Bread and butter casserole. Before bread pudding became a restaurant dessert, it was a savory weeknight dinner. Mothers layered slices of day-old white bread in a buttered baking dish. Scattered bits of leftover ham between the layers. Poured beaten eggs mixed with milk, salt, music, and pepper over everything. And baked it until the top turned golden and the center set firm like a savory custard. A loaf of bread cost 16. Eggs were 60 cents a dozen. The whole dish fed 5 people for under 40. You could assemble it the night before, which meant supper was ready 45 minutes after you turned on the oven. No standing, no stirring. Women who worked the early shift at textile mills made this because it asked almost nothing of them at the end of a long day. The top layer crisped music like toast, while the inside stayed soft and custard-like. It disappeared from American kitchens the moment sliced bread became cheap enough that nobody bothered saving the stale ends anymore. Number 24. Biscuit-topped beef casserole. Ground beef browned with onion, mixed with a can of tomato soup and a handful of frozen peas, poured into a baking dish, and topped with rounds of raw biscuit dough from a 10-cent tube. 30 minutes at 400 F, and the biscuits puffed golden while the meat bubbled underneath. Ground beef cost about 43 cents a pound in 1956. The can of soup cost 10. The whole casserole fed 6 people, and the leftovers reheated without losing a thing. The biscuit top was the genius. Music. It replaced the mashed potato topping of a shepherd's pie with something music that took 0 preparation. No peeling, no boiling, no mashing. You twisted the tube open, laid the rounds on top, and the oven did everything else. Children who would push away a plate of stewed beef ate this without argument because the biscuits made it feel like something special. Number 23. Scalloped cabbage. A head of cabbage cost less than a dime and could feed a crowd. Mothers shredded it thin, layered it in a baking dish with a white sauce made from butter, flour, and milk, topped it with buttered breadcrumbs, and baked it until it bubbled and browned. The cabbage turned silky and sweet as it cooked, losing its raw sharpness. Some women added bacon between the layers. Some stirred in grated American cheese, showed up at potlucks and funeral dinners across the Midwest. A whole casserole cost about 25 cents and stretched across to meals. Women's club cookbooks from Iowa and Minnesota listed it without fanfare. The dish nobody bragged about, but everybody ate. Number 22. Tuna noodle casserole. The original was not the soggy mess that gave casseroles a bad name. Music. Canned tuna drained and flaked. Egg noodles cooked just short of tender. Cream of mushroom soup thinned with a splash of milk. Frozen peas stirred in at the last moment. Everything folded together gently and poured into a dish. Crushed potato chips scattered across the top. 15 minutes in a hot oven and the chips turned golden while the filling set just enough to hold a spoonful. A can of tuna cost 29. The potato chip topping was the signature. That salt and crunch against the creamy filling made children ask for skins. Campbell printed the recipe on their soup labels in 1955, and it became the most made casserole. It was embarrassing. We were wrong. Lasagna required ricotta, mozzarella, and special noodles boiled separately. Poor man's lasagna used elbow macaroni layered in a baking dish with brown ground beef, tomato sauce, tomato paste thinned with water, and slices of American cheese. There was enough liquid to cook the pasta right in the dish. The dish was covered tightly with foil and baked for an hour. The macaroni swelled tender and stained red. The cheese melted into strings between layers. It was not Italian. It was American poverty cooking wearing a borrowed name. And it kept families full on Thursday nights when the grocery money was running thin. The whole dish cost less than $60 and produced enough to last 2 suppers. Number 20. Hot dog and bean bake. Hot dogs sliced into coins, stirred into baked beans, poured into a casserole dish with a stripe of yellow mustard across the top. A pack of hot dogs costed $39. A large can of pork and beans was $15. The whole thing fed a family for less than the price of a hamburger at a diner. The hot dogs plumped in the oven as the beans thickened around them, and the mustard browned slightly on the surface, adding a sharp tang that cut through the sweetness. Children ate it without being told twice. Nobody was proud of it. Nobody needed to be. It showed up, fed everyone, and never let a family down. Number 19. Potato and egg casserole. Sliced boiled potatoes layered with sliced hard-boiled eggs covered in a white sauce made from butter, flour, and milk. Baked with breadcrumbs browned on top. A pinch of paprika adds color. The 6 people a hot filling proteinic dinner without a scrap of meat. Catholic families made this every Friday during Lent. Farm families made it when the hens were laying faster music than the eggs could be used. The potatoes held the heat, so the casserole stayed warm through second helpings. This appeared in home economics textbooks throughout the 1950s as an example of affordable family cooking. It has vanished so completely that most people under 50 have never heard of it. Here is something worth understanding about casseroles and why they mattered. The casserole was not just a recipe format. It was an engineering solution to the problem of feeding a family when you had almost nothing to work with. A casserole stretches. It hides. It transforms. You put cheap ingredients into a dish, cover them with sauce, bake them together, and what comes out looks and tastes like a unified meal rather than a collection of scraps. A woman serving boiled potatoes and a fried egg on a plate was serving poverty. The same woman layering those potatoes and eggs into a casserole with white sauce was serving supper. The mattered. These dishes were not lazy cooking. They were acts of quiet resourcefulness performed by women who understood that how food looked on the table affected how a family felt about itself. Every casserole on this list was built on that understanding. Number 18. Macaroni and cheese casserole. Not the boxed kind, not the restaurant kind with 4 artisan cheeses. The 1950s kind. Cooked elbow macaroni layered with slices of Vita, doused in milk, beaten with eggs, and baked until the top browned and the custard set around the noodles. The eggs were the secret modern recipes forgot. They turned the milk into a custard that bound everything together, so each spoonful held its shape on the plate. A box of macaroni cost 9. Velveeta cost 4 cents and lasted 3 batches. This was Sunday dinner. Potluck star and comfort food rolled into one. The crackling top layer, browned and slightly chewy, was the piece everyone fought over. Number 17. Shipwreck casserole. The name, shipwreck, said everything. Layer upon layer of whatever you had, wrecked into a single pan and baked until it worked. Raw sliced potatoes on the bottom. Sliced onion. Brown ground beef. A can of kidney beans drained. A can of tomato soup poured over the top. Cover. Bake for 90 minutes at 350. Walk away. The potatoes steamed tender at the bottom. The beef released its juices downward. The beans held their shape. And the soup tied everything together into a thick gravy. This casserole required no pre-cooking except browning the beef. For a mother with 4 children and no time, this was salvation in a 9 by 13 pan. The recipe appeared in community cookbooks under a dozen different names. Shipwreck Music's 7-layer dinner. Hobo casserole. The ingredients shifted by household, but the use never changed. Use what you have. Let the oven do the work. Number 16. Spam and rice casserole. Before spam became a punchline, it was a lifeline. Cubed spam mixed with cooked frozen peas. It was topped with crushed corn flakes mixed with melted butter and baked for 30 minutes. Music: the Spam gave bland rice a salty, meaty backbone. The cream soup made it creamy without cream. Music: the cornflake topping added buttery crunch. Children scraped off and ate first. Music: Spam could be kept in the cupboard for years without refrigeration, which made it the ultimate pantry protein music for families far from grocery stores. Military families brought the recipe into civilian life and kept making it long after they did not have to. There was no shame in a Spam casserole in 1955. There was only a full table and a clean pan. Number 15. Salmon and noodle bake. A can of pink salmon, egg noodles, and cream of celery soup. The salmon was drained, and the soft bones were crushed in with a fork because they were pure calcium and too valuable to waste. The fish was folded with the noodles and the soup, then topped with breadcrumbs, music, and baked until golden. A can of salmon cost $25. Catholic families made it on Fridays. Coastal families made it whenever the budget squeezed. When canned tuna got cheaper in the 1960s, rotation. The nutrition faded with them. If you want the full collection, I made a cookbook of 100 simple meals. The link is at the top of the description. Number 14. Hamburger and corn casserole. A can of whole kernel corn drained. Cream of mushroom soup. Cooked egg noodles. Everything was stirred together, then baked with Gruyere cheese melting across the top. The corn added a sweetness that balanced the savory beef. The noodles stretched the meat, and the soup made it creamy. It cost less than $70 and fed 6 with leftovers. It appeared on Wednesday night's music with the regularity of the evening news. Nobody photographed it. Nobody posted the recipe. The pan just came back empty. Music: children did not know they were eating a budget meal. They thought they were eating their favorite supper. Number 13. Mock chicken casserole. Here is the trick that made people believe they were eating something they were not. Saltine crackers crushed fine, mixed with cream of chicken soup, a beaten egg, and seasoning. Pressed into a baking dish and baked, sliced, and served with chicken gravy poured over the top. No chicken, not a single shred. The crackers absorbed the soup, and the egg bound them into a firm, slickable loaf that under gravy genuinely tasted like simplified chicken to exhausted taste music buds on a Thursday night. A box of saltines cost 19. A can of soup cost 10 cents. Mothers who served it never told the children what it actually was. The secret held for decades. Number 12. Cheesy potato casserole. Sliced raw potatoes are layered with onion and generous handfuls of Gruyere American cheese covered in milk, then baked low and slow for 90 minutes. No cream of anything soup. Just potatoes, cheese, onion, and milk doing what they do when left alone long enough in a hot oven. The top layer browned and crisped, while the layers beneath turned soft and yielding. This showed up at Thanksgiving alongside the turkey, at funeral dinners alongside the ham, and on Tuesday nights alongside nothing at all because it did not need anything else. A 5B bag of potatoes cost 29. The whole dish served 8 people. Second pattern break. Here is what the food industry understood before any of us did. The casserole was the enemy of convenience food. A woman who knew how to make a shipwreck casserole or a cheesy potato bake did not need frozen dinners. She did not need hamburger helper. She did not need boxed meal kits with flavor packets and separate seasoning envelopes. She needed a baking dish, an oven, and 30 music minutes. The entire convenience food revolution was built on convincing American women that what they already knew how to do was too hard, too slow, and too old-fashioned. Swanson, General Mills, and Kraft spent millions in advertising to replace the casserole with products that cost more and delivered less. And it worked. Not because the products were better, but because the message was relentless. By 1975, the casserole was embarrassing. By 1985, it was a joke. By 2000, it was forgotten. The knowledge did not die naturally. It was killed. Number 11. Tomato and rice bake. A cup of uncooked rice, a can of tomatoes, a cup of water, a sliced onion, a tablespoon of bacon grease. Everything into a covered casserole dish baked for an hour until the rice absorbed every drop and turned tender and stained red. The bacon grease gave everything a smoky depth that made the simplest ingredients taste deliberate. This was a meatless casserole that did not apologize for having no meat. It was filling and savory and warm, and it cost less than 20. Farm wives made it when the garden was producing tomatoes faster than the family could eat them. City wives made it when the paycheck ran short. Number 10. Chicken and biscuit bake. Canned chicken, a can of mixed vegetables, drained, and cream of chicken soup were stirred together, poured into a baking dish, and topped music with biscuit dough, either homemade or from a refrigerated tube. It was baked until the biscuits rose tall and golden, and the filling bubbled up around the edges. This was chicken pot pie without the skill or the time a proper crust demanded. The biscuit top gave the same satisfaction without any rolling or crimping. The whole thing came together in 10 minutes and baked in 25 minutes. For mothers who worked outside the home, which by 1958 was nearly a third of married women, this casserole answered the question nobody wanted to ask out loud. How do I feed my family well when I barely have time to feed them at all? Number 9. Ground beef and potato layer bake. Raw sliced potatoes on the bottom. Brown seasoned beef in the middle. Sliced onion on top. Tomato soup thinned with water poured over everything. Covered with foil and baked for an hour. The potatoes steamed in the tomato liquid. The beef released its fat downward, and the onion soft and into sweet translucent rings. When you pulled back the foil, the kitchen filled with a smell that made children set the table without being asked. The whole casserole cost less than 60. Mothers called it whatever came to mind. The casserole. That potato thing, Tuesday. It did not need a name because it was always there. Number 8. Sausage and sauerkraut bake. Smoked sausage links nestled into drained sauerkraut with sliced apples layered on top and a sprinkle of brown sugar. Baked covered for 45 minutes. The sauerkraut mellowed in the oven, losing its aggressive tang and turning almost sweet alongside the apples. The sausage released smoky fat into the kraut, flavoring it